All right, welcome everyone. We appreciate your patience. We had some technical difficulties, but we are on our way. We are so excited to have you with us here for our third event of our Diversity Deep Dive series. Today, we are welcoming Oscar Santos, Luana Hill, and Bryant Dozier of Truist. We're going to hear some great insights about what diversity looks like at this incredible organization. To begin, I want to talk a little bit about who SDEIB is, what we're about. Our mission is that we strive to build community through education, empowerment, and networking related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in business. And we envision ourselves as individuals who will empower future business leaders to celebrate diversity and engage in equitable and inclusive practices. This whole series is all about giving people a chance to see what's behind the curtain, what's really happening, and hear about the experiences of the folks that are doing the hard work. You'll get access to this presentation following the event. This is just some information on how you can get involved and follow and not miss a future SDEIB event. We do host fall and spring series as well as one-off events, so you don't want to miss one. In today's session, we're going to begin with a moderated conversation. One of our board members will be talking to our guests, relaying some questions, and we're going to be able to just have this organic, authentic conversation. Follow it, hear where it goes. We encourage you during this time to be thinking about particular things that spark you, insights, questions that it spurs. Write those down because we're going to follow up with an audience Q&A. This will be a great chance for you to unmute, engage, and ask your questions directly. Or if you're a little bit more shy, you have your food in front of you, whatever it might be, you're welcome to also submit questions in the chat. More on that later. Finally, we'll close out with a reflective share out. We are running a little bit short on time, but we're going to do our very best to include that share out time. It's just a great way to process the great insights that you'll hear today. So norms and expectations for today's session. Please, we encourage you to assume best intentions. Talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion is hard work, and it can be uncomfortable. That's good. That means you're challenging your perceptions and you're trying to get better. We encourage you to keep your camera on, if possible. We want this to be more personal. This is a great opportunity for you to network and get to see and engage directly with representatives of Truist. Please do hold your questions until the latter portion of the session. As we indicated, there's going to be a fair chunk of time where you will be able to engage. So hold on to those. You'll be able to either use the chat or unmute when one of our board members, Treasure, will cue you to do so. Please do remain muted unless you're called upon during Q&A, so we have minimal distractions during our call. To begin, let's welcome our guests. First up, we have Oscar Santos. Oscar Santos is a Senior Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Truist Financial Corp. He is responsible for leading belief-based strategies that are aligned to organizational behaviors with a relentless and consistent focus on driving an inclusive, diverse, equitable culture, both internally and externally. He also focuses on creating recruiting tools, learning experiences, networks, and habits for identifying diverse talent, bringing diverse representation at key levels of the organization by keenly focusing on developing, promoting, sponsoring, and retaining talent, with specific emphasis on diversity in leadership roles. He currently lives in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and sits on the board of the Winston-Salem Foundation, the United Way of Forsyth County Executive Committee, and Crosby Scholars, helping these community organizations develop equitable strategies on advancing equity in education and building economies through inclusive design practices to impact systems and structures. Our second guest today is Luana Hill. Luana Hill is a university relations recruiter with over a decade of successful experience in hiring early talent. Prior to the financial services industry, Luana recruited in the legal field. She often jokes that recruiting recruited her, but it fulfills her personal purpose of helping guide talented individuals into the career professionals they want to be. Originally from Brazil, she moved to Raleigh, North Carolina at the age of 12, where she had to acclimate to a new culture and language. Following a traumatic event in 2014, Luana felt compelled to advocate for the disabled community. Luana currently serves as the Capabilities Action Network Business Resource Group Enterprise co-lead, where she focuses on bringing awareness, education, and financial success to those in and around the disability community. She recently launched the Purple Table Talk series, where she hosts engaging, unfiltered, raw, and informative conversations around several topics for teammates seeking support and/or additional information regarding different perspectives on various issues. Outside of work, Luana is a wife and mom to a 12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. She is a happier person when she's sitting on the beach. Luana graduated from East Carolina University with a degree in international business and currently sits on its employer advisory board. She was an executive member of her sorority, Alpha Chi Delta. I think I said that right. I don't speak Greek life, where she continues to serve as the member professional development advisor. Lastly, we are joined by Bryant Dozier. Dozier, how do you pronounce your last name?
Both, but I pronounce it Dozier, but people
Dozier.
do say Dozier. Yeah.
They're the fancy way. We fancy, okay.
I like it.
Bryant Dozier is the workplace philanthropy and DEI consultant of Truist Financial Corp. Bryant serves in a collaborative role in both the corporate social responsibility and diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. He is responsible for teammate volunteerism and leading the annual workplace giving campaign, supporting teammates giving to nonprofit organizations, such as United Way and other health, human services, or civic organizations. He is the consultant for the BOLD, standing for Black Organizers, Leaders, and Doers, Business Resource Group, which is one of the 8 business resource groups supported by the DEI office at Truist. Can't wait to hear more about that. He currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and serves on the United Way of Greater Greensboro Young Leaders Cabinet, a group of young professionals working towards building a stronger, healthier community. Finally, I'm happy to introduce our moderator for today, a co-board member here of SDEIB, Pranshu Srivastava. Pranshu is an enthusiastic, open-minded, and trustworthy graduate student pursuing a dual MBA MS in data science and analytics from Robinson College of Business. Pranshu helps leadership teams develop strategies through effective management and data-driven analytics. Pranshu worked at Wanderon, a travel company, where he helped navigate company strategy during the pandemic to stabilize cash flows and incorporate a sustainable approach as a product manager. Before this, he worked as a middleware developer at Accenture Innovation Hub, where he developed features for the IPTV software stack for T-Mobile. Pranshu's experiences have resulted in a passion for learning about data and visualization techniques to build business solutions across multiple industries. In his free time, Pranshu enjoys trekking in the mountains and polishing his eye for landscape photography. All right, Pranshu, I pass it on to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible, right? So first of all, I'd like to welcome each one of our guests for sparing their time and interacting with GSU and the rest of the members who've joined us today. Since each one of you is working in different divisions for Truist, right? I had this one question for all of you, which was, what is your definition for DE&I and what does it mean to you? So I'll start off with Bryant, and then we'll jump on to Luana and then Oscar. Let's hear what you have to say.
Okay. I think so. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What it means to me is really looking at someone for who they are and someone feeling that they can be exactly who they are, no matter what setting they are in, while being at work or home or church or wherever you are. It's not just one place. And that's something that with this role in the bank, I've been able to work with myself and being more of me and discovering who I am and supporting others becoming who they are too. And learning that everyone has different obstacles and really just being there for everyone in that time of need.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a place where you can be your authentic self, which I think is what Brian was saying, and it not being afraid to show up in that way, because each one of us as cheesy as it sounds, is that whole thing, there's only one of you in the world to own your space. And it's true. There is only one of us in the world. And so if we're not bringing our perspectives, then no one else can, because we're the only ones who have experienced our lives in the ways that we have. And so we need all of those points of view in order to make it more holistic. And I'm also thankful to Truist to recognizing that and allowing us to bring ourselves to the table.
Okay.
And that is going to bring me to two of my favorite definitions of what D&I is all about. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice at the table. Equity is having those in charge of the meeting turn on the microphone to the right volume so the voices of those in the back of the room can be amplified. So that's one of my favorite definitions as far as like what this is all about and the work that we do is all about.
Amazing. Because for me as an international student, right, when I came here to the States, it was a very different landscape as compared to back in India, right? But as I spent a couple of months here, I recognized that United States is one of those countries where, people from all over the world come into, and each one of them have their own uniqueness and their own talents and their own perspective of viewing the world. And when it comes to diversity, I think it's really, really important to cherish that and support that in any of the organizations that you're working for, right? Having said that, there are certain, unconscious biases that people develop over a period of time towards certain communities or towards certain people. So Luana, just to piggyback on this thought, could you probably tell us some of the, I'd say, techniques or methods or ideologies that you look forward to whenever you want to get rid of unconscious bias in those moments?
Yes, personally, growing up in Brazil, there is a little bit of a caste system. There are the poor, and then there are some, others. And so I recognize in myself that when I see someone dressed a certain way, that to me looks as if they are more on the poor side, then I find myself going to the other side of the street or being a little afraid, because in Brazil, it is a violent country, and those that don't have try to get it in a way that they know that they can't ask for, and they're not going to work their way up to it. So they just take it. And so there are a lot of violence in Brazil. And so I have noticed myself acting that way and seeing that within others. And so I check myself, like, you're not in danger. You're not in Brazil. This person may just be wearing that because a million reasons. So I watch without being, I'm very self-conscious of it now. I watch and I pay attention, and why am I feeling this way? And then assess my situation and then kind of regroup and address it in the way that I need to.
Yeah, because as you talked about Brazil, I think somewhat similar situation is back in India as well, where there's always a caste system, there's always, that differentiation between the rich and the poor, even on the basis of, the jobs that they're doing or the religion they're following or the caste they're from, right? And people generally, especially in bigger joint families, if I say so, since it's more, it has been patriarchal for the past, couple of centuries. It's been people have just incorporated that kind of a belief, and they're just trying to levy that out towards the younger generations as well. But as we're moving forward, I think particularly for the Gen Y and Gen Z, people have started, appreciating and kind of, self-reflecting and acknowledging that there are some unconscious biases that we tend to develop, but it's not something that you should do in moving forward. Okay, so Oscar, we know that you're the equity and inclusion segment leader. So what strategies do you employ for developing diverse teams within Truist? This one's for you. Yeah.
So yeah, so it has to be centered around strategy. By the way, every time that I hear somebody saying, "Oh, we have a D&I program, we have a D&I initiative," that tells me where they are in their journey, meaning that they don't have D&I as part of the fabric of the strategic approach that we have for culture, for client interaction, for teammate engagement, all of those things. So if you really want to get serious about D&I, call it a strategy. Don't call it an initiative or a program, because again, that's a really important piece. So strategy is what it's centered around. So a lot of the things that we do focus on 4 specific areas. Our strategy is focused on embedding. So embedding is like, how do we influence beliefs and behaviors? So you're talking unconscious bias, right? So how do we actually create these environments that allow leaders to recognize the biases when they happen, because they're called unconscious for a reason. It happens at times that you were not even noticing that it happened. And guess what? I am a D&I practitioner, and even though I study this topic, I research this topic, I teach this topic, I find myself in situations that I go like, well, there are my biases. That one just happened about an hour ago that somebody said, oh, this person is a babysitter. And my initial reaction was like, oh, is she in high school? And it's like, no, she's a teacher. She's 35 years old. And I'm like, boom, there's my bias. So embedding is a really big part of our strategy, because how can you hold someone accountable without first giving them the awareness, the education, et cetera? The other part related to your question that we have to center ourselves around is talent attraction, bringing in the talent that brings the different perspectives. And again, that can be from the typical 2 diversities that we think about immediately when we hear the word diversity, which is gender and ethnicity or race, but we can go through the gamut of what is actually diverse. And part of the strategies that we have to put in place is bringing in the talent. The third area that we focus for strategy purposes is the talent advancement. Okay, so if we're looking at our company and we realize that at the very bottom of the organization, like those frontline leaders, those entry positions, we have a really good bunch of diversity from, again, multiple different angles. But the higher you go into the organization, wait a minute, there's something there that doesn't look right. There's just more homogeneity. There's just not diversity. There's conversity. So we have to ask ourselves why that is. So part of the strategy is to get really deep into the why. And when we start delving into the why of, those specific data points, we start finding answers. And a lot of those answers have to do with the affinity biases, with in-group biases, with halo biases, with horn biases, with a bunch of different things. So again, the strategy has to be very centered around how do we educate and create consciousness? How do we attract and develop that talent? That's a huge part of the work that I do on a daily basis.
That's a great response, because people want to be more diverse in their thinking and their way of life, they need to be taught in certain ways, right? Because they're just not aware of things, and when things just pop up in front of them, that's when they realize that this is something that I did wrong, or this is something where my unconscious bias played role, right, which I didn't want to. Okay, so for Brian, I have a questions. So could you tell me, Brian, like some of the specific responsibilities or examples of specific responsibilities when consulting on DEI, right? Whenever you're, playing your role as a DEI consultant, what specific responsibilities do you have in head while going through the same?
Okay, thank you. I can explain it, and I'll explain the structure of my teammates too, who are other DEI consultants. So basically, there are 8 business resource groups, but there also is the DEI office. So we're all assigned to different groups. And so my group is BOLD, but I have a teammate who's assigned to the WIN group, which is for Women Network. And so I don't want to say the new name because I don't want to mess it up. But WIN is for the women's group. And so basically, she's assigned to finances. While she's assigned to taking care of all of the finances for the DEI office and the BRG groups, I'm assigned to taking care of volunteerism and event activation. And so what I do is I bring over everything that we're doing in corporate social responsibility, all of our volunteer efforts, fundraising, anything our community development managers, connecting the dots with the bank, bringing those initiatives and those strategies into the DEI world and really working those into the BRG group strategy. So we consult, making sure the BRG groups is acting and supporting the strategy for Truist at that time. Recently, during the COVID-19 virus, they focused totally on virtual series and virtual trainings, virtual meetings, and Truist teammates were really entertained virtually throughout the entire year. The BRG group supported it, and they never missed a beat of it. And so now we're getting Truist activated, and they're going to support the activation of Truist marketing information and all of that other stuff and volunteerism in a different way next year because of us being able to go back out in the communities.
Okay, because I believe that Truist is doing a lot when it comes to diversity. That's one of the companies that I really look forward to as well. Whenever I'm going through the list of most of the companies in finance industry, because that's like I think finance has that kind of what do you call it? Like there are a couple of anecdotes which go by, like the finance industry is not that diverse as it used. Like it's not that diverse, and there are certain companies, certain banks, investment banks, and all as well, where people don't see hiring or any of the structure of the organization being very diverse. But Truist has been very different, and I just wanted to know about I know it's one of your mission statements as well, that Truist cares, right? Which is caring is one of the part of the mission statements as well. And I've been seeing a lot of advertisements or banners and a lot of things going around Truist cares. So could each one of you, starting from Luana and then to Oscar and then to Bryant, talk a little bit about this new initiative that you've started?
I wouldn't call it a new initiative. It is a new value. So we were both CB&T and SunTrust were values-driven organizations. When we became Truist, we then created from all of our old values, we created our new values, which were very well aligned with what we had to begin with. It was just rewarded and making sure that we were being inclusive of all of each other's perspectives. So caring became one of our values. And the way that I see it play out on a daily basis in my world, so I'm a university recruiter. I may be talking to a student and I can quickly realize that this student may not be a good fit for my role. Instead of just flat out declining the student, you're done, I start to talk to them about what kind of roles they want to be in and what kind of things do they want to get out of life. I just saw this meme, which I thought was brilliant. Stop asking people what they want to be when they grow up, but rather who they want to be when they grow up. And I thought that was so good. And I vowed that I was going to start doing that with my candidates, because what kind of person do you want to become? And so actually, it's not just caring, it is radically caring. That's what we are striving for, is to radically care for each interaction. And that means with our clients, with our teammates, with whomever it is. And in my space, that's what it looks like. It's guiding that student through the process to get them to their seat, not the seat that I have, but the seat that they own. And so that's kind of the way that I carry out that strategy in my world.
Okay.
Yeah, and from my perspective, Luana, so well stated. From my perspective, caring is the foundation of inclusion, is the foundation of engagement, is the foundation of belonging. Like, you have to start there. And Truist Cares thinks about it from the spectrum of differences that we have when it comes to the fact that even though our purpose says to inspire and build better lives and communities, we understand that not all lives are created equal. Not all communities are created equal. So the essence of Truist Cares is to bring in, whenever it needs to be, a hand out, meaning like the charitable, philanthropic type of side of our organization, but it's also about the hand ups, which the hand up is more centered around equity. And what can we do that is different to make sure, not equal, different, not equal, to make sure that we keep the playing field leveled in order for us to gain fairness and access. So Truist Cares involves a lot of that. And at the end of the day, is putting your words, your actions behind your all of the things that you say you are about It's walking, not just talking the talk, but walking the talk.
Absolutely. Brian.
Yes, thank you, Oscar. And from my perspective, I would say I support that value by saying Truist cares more. How can we care more, and how can we care better? And from my world, we're really tracking how much we're doing out in the communities, and we want to tell the stories of everything that we're doing. So we're creating opportunities because we're doing research all throughout the bank, because all different parts of the bank care differently. The wealth division care about filling the wealth gap. The community reinvestment act division, they care about pouring into the communities and supporting them through volunteerism. And so all of these different areas, even cybersecurity, they care about clients and communities not being hacked. And so we have to go through and really find out how all of these lines of businesses care about the community and bring it into one place so all teammates can use their resources to educate the clients and the community about everything that we're doing at Truist. And so if it's about handling your money better, we'll have that resource for teammates to use. Or if it's about protecting your Facebook account, that should be something that teammates can also teach in the communities so people aren't getting hacked and things of that nature. So every different department cares different, but in the CSR world, we want to bring Truist together to care.
That's a brilliant point, because when I see different verticals within an organization working together, each of these verticals has a different value or a different purpose that you tend to solve, and caring can be associated with each of these purposes for all the verticals. Right. So it's a brilliant point. Oscar, so you've been working with Truist for quite some time, right? Have you seen any radical changes following when you started working here in BB&T, and then when you transitioned to Truist, and then how the overall landscape for diversity has changed along the years? Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. That's a very interesting question for the following reason. So a lot of this work is very similar to a wellness journey. A lot of this work, not because you go to the gym today, means that you're going to stand in front of the mirror tomorrow and you're going to see results, as an example. The work around inclusion requires a lot of tact and care and being very intentional and deliberate. And in order for you to change beliefs, you have to build trust, right? And in order for you to have trust, it requires relationship and it requires consistency. So there are parts of this work that is absolutely something that radical is definitely not something that we hear very often. It's more of a methodical and continuum of an approach. Now, I do have to say that after the racial unrest and social unrest that we experienced during 2020, I have not seen that big of a reaction from senior leaders. Because here's the thing, all of this work, every single one of us that, if you can hear my voice right now, you're an agent of change. You are absolutely a person that has influences over other individuals, whether that's your friends, family members, etc. When it comes to systems, when it comes to structures, things that are policy, process, procedures, all of those things, the only individuals that can actually change that are those that are in positions of influence and power. So if you ask me again, there's two answers to that question, because typically the work takes time, but there's events like the ones that we experience that will bring that radical approach of awareness and like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that there were
It'll
so
catalyze
many
everything.
things that were. Yeah, exactly. So that was the radical moment that we experienced. And I have to say, we started putting accountabilities in our corporate social responsibility report as far as like how we were going to change. We started doing reviews for pay equity and making sure that we're being fair on that. So all of that was, I would say, was really radical, but it was created by the ocean of all of us coming together and saying, time out, people of power and influence. We got to take a look at this a little bit closer. And therefore, those are kind of the two ways that I see the answer to that question.
Absolutely. Yeah, because after the event in 2020, a lot of conscience developed around diversity, right? And people just realized that how important it is to cherish that and incorporate that in their organizations. And I think not just Truist, but a lot of different companies started taking diversity, very seriously post that event, right? Okay, Luana. So you were a university recruiter, right? And I've seen this question for like I've asked this question to a couple of other people as well. But what do you think? Like putting your LinkedIn profile picture, does that generate some unconscious bias whenever you're going through the candidates, or just relating to their resume and just going to their LinkedIn's and just trying to check out like whether that candidate would be a good fit for a role or not?
This is my personal perspective. This is not Truist's stance on this, so I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
I don't mind people having their LinkedIn link as in just the URL for people to check in and connect if they want to. However, I'm not a fan of having an actual picture on the resume.
Yeah.
And it is exactly for those reasons. Unless you're in the entertainment business and it's a requirement for you to have that, the way you look has nothing to do with your qualifications. And so it does not enhance your resume. It actually just takes up real estate in your resume. And that's not needed. Your resume experience should speak for itself. Now, having said that, I have done a lot of resume critiques with a lot of different people because their resumes are not telling the right story. I've had people talk about their part-time grocery store jobs, and it took up most of the resume, and then hidden down at the bottom, oh, president of this organization, president, treasurer, this. Why are you not highlighting that? That's your job. That's the job that you want to go for. Forget the part-time stocking shelves. That's what's paying some of your social activities, but that's not who you want to be. Yeah. So switch that up. Put that on the top, and then at the bottom say, oh, and by the way, work 20 hours a week while attending school, while being a leader, while doing all of these other things, because that's the switch that you've got to make. You've got to connect. The resume is the door opener. Your picture has nothing to do with it. So I personally don't like pictures on resumes unless you're in the entertainment business.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense to me because I don't know, there might be some unconscious bias that gets developed if you're a recruiter and you see a bunch of resumes with all of their pictures on top of it. You might not know about it, but you still kind of make that unconscious decision whether to select that candidate or not based on that, right? All right, I think we are at 12:45. So let's open the floor for some of the questions from the audience. So I'm going to pass it on to Treasure, if you may, and then we can go ahead and ask some questions from, take some questions from the audience. This is great, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's very great. I wrote down a ton of notes. So for everyone that is joined, just as a reminder, if you could use the raise hand feature or put your questions in the chat. And I will start as we are kind of loading that roster with one that I wanted to ask. So I'm not sure if this would be for Oscar specifically, but just wanted to kind of toss this one out there. What type of diversity differences, if you will, do you see on the wealth management side versus the true banking side? Is there a big difference that you all are, I'd say, noticing?
So when it comes to, so you're talking wealth management and you're talking about differences, and there are, when we look, for example, at the specific diversity of race and gender, which again are the two most predominant ones that get tracked, evaluated, analyzed, et cetera, you can tell between wealth management, our corporate investment group, our risk management organization, and our commercial banking organization, those four organizations need attention when it comes to bringing more of the diversity that I just mentioned. So one of the things that we are constantly doing is we are bringing the awareness of okay, so if we are going to actually be looking at markets and prospects and clients and all of that, what are the things that are so thematic, that are so pattern-wise, that are going to lead us to not think or not believe that there's also other opportunities in other markets? So that's when you, as a diversity, equity, and inclusion lead, you have to actually bring this, what it's called, learn from diversity. And that's when you start, again, trickling in markets that they're missing, clients that they're missing, prospects that they're missing. And believe me, there is a ton of that. And what we bring into the conversation is awareness that if, for example, if I tell you right now, CEO, who comes to mind immediately? You're probably going to think about a white, tall male is typically what I get the answers there. If I ask you about, think about a pilot, what comes to your mind? Does it, is it black female come to mind? Of course, there are black females that are pilots, but that doesn't happen automatically because of the things that we've been talking about. So, Treasure, to answer your question, that's the piece. Similar, if I ask you all, what are the two main things that we need to do in order for us to get into better wellness or lose weight or something like that? Everybody's going to say, oh, the two things are exercise more and consume less calories. Easy enough, right? Two things, that's all you have to do. However, is it that easy to execute upon and get the results? For many people, it's not. For some, it is. For others, are not. So we have to understand the whys that is. And that's one of the things that for wealth management, we have been wanting to do. And we look at portfolios, we look at client base, and we realize we're not actually bringing in enough of the talent to help us understand other markets that we're not at all tapping into. And that's one of the things that, again, bring opportunity, Treasure. That's a great question.
Love it. I'm going to, Amy, if you want to open your line, you had something?
Yeah, I have a question. It's directed to Bryant because he addressed it, but I don't know if others will also have insights on this. My question is about data, right? So I was wondering if the Truist DE&I data is publicly available, because I know in this day and age, everything in this industry is about data and analytics, right? Justification, getting that information that you need to get the support that y'all need to do the work that you're doing. So I didn't know, I'm so curious to know what sort of pieces of information y'all are looking at tracking. What has Truist found so valuable to be able to do its research on?
Oscar, I'll let you comment first, and then I'll comment after you.
Yeah, happy to. So data is absolutely something. So what happens is when we apply inclusive design principles, we have to surface the inequities, right? But the way you surface the inequities is not with assumptions, is with data. So we absolutely have to go into understanding the structures when it comes to individuals that are part of teams, especially at job grades that bring more influence to the organization, as an example. All of that we publish. If you go to our actually, thank you, Luana. If you go to our corporate social responsibility report on page 56, you'll have all the breakdown of the data that basically brings the awareness of where we are today and what we are setting up as goals for the future. And again, that comes from bringing in senior leaders that are diverse when it comes to gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, military status, LGBTQ communities, all of that. We also have the aspect of equal employment opportunity laws that we are cautious about. So for example, posting specific pay of certain individuals. Of course, we cannot do that for legal reasons, but we can look at a bulk of individuals that are within a certain job grade bandwidth, and then it'll tell us what that data is about. So once again, as far as like the data that we publish to the world, once again, page 56, corporate social responsibility report, you're going to see all of that. And then there's others that we are fine tuning, or we're actually finding out more. Why is it that we cannot publish that? Is it because of something related to the law that we are not aware of, or is it because of some type of bias that is kind of hindering us from sharing that? So that's the way that we use it. But once again, there's nothing in our line of work that can move forward without that data piece that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I would add, thank you, Oscar. I was going to talk about the corporate social responsibility report, but not into the detail that Oscar said, page 56. And so that's why I wanted him to go first. But what you also will find in there is all of the impact that we're doing from the business resource groups too. So it's really showing you and telling you everything we do, events we posted, people who we've invited in to talk with teammates about how we handled the COVID vaccination series, to educate teammates about that whole process. And so everything is out there in that CSR report that we've done throughout the year.
Okay, I have one from the chat. This is for you, Luana. From your seat, what are some things Truist is specifically focusing on to ensure they attract diverse talent?
We're here right now. We attend events like these. We are very purposeful about the types of events that we engage in, that we can connect it with students who care about this stuff, who wants it to make an impact, who wants it to be a culture contributor in our company. And so we're very purposeful about the types of engagements that we have.
And Luana, that's such a good point from the standpoint of we realize that it's not that talent doesn't exist on a particular community. It's that if we don't knock on enough doors to access and to connect with individuals that live at GFU, that live in HSIs, that live in anatheses, diverse student serving institutions, then guess what? We're going to stay stuck in the things, the thematics, the things that have always been the way that we have taken. So that's a big part of what Luana and her team have done. Is they have gone knocking doors that we didn't knock on before. And therefore, because we don't want to be in that situation of saying, well, we don't have enough of X talent because there's nobody out there with the talent. Of course, that's one of the worst things that anyone can say, because there is a ton of talent in multiple communities that are underrepresented.
And Oscar, I will add to that one thing, just so everyone knows. Last year I was working in a contact center, and I always would tell Luana how I wanted to do her job, helping recruit talent. And but I was in the contact center, and I got involved with the business resource groups in that area. And when I got involved, I did communications for the region, and from there I got to know people like Oscar, Luana, and so many more people. And one day, when my skills were developed and people were teaching me things and pouring into me throughout the bank who didn't look anything like me, I then got this opportunity that I was prepared for. And when I applied for it, I had done so many things throughout the business resource groups and other engagement opportunities in Truist that I was prepared for the work. But I'll say that I noticed one thing. I didn't get involved in college until I was going to join my fraternity. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and I didn't get involved until I wanted to join. So I did that same thing with my career. Just like you get involved on the college campuses, do that same thing whenever you get into your career role, so that you're exposed and everyone knows you, so that you can grow in the same way you did on the college campus. People who are engaged, they mature totally different than someone who's going to class and getting their degree and going home.
That's a great point.
I love that so much. Let's see, we're going to take probably two more questions. So this one, Oscar, I don't know if you can take this one as well. Where is D&I housed within your organization? Is it under HR or is it its own entity, and how large is your team?
Yeah, so it is under human resources. However, the board of directors have recently challenged us to explore beyond the teammate population. We call employees at Truist teammates. And now we're going to, even though we're housed under HR, we're going to start working with our retail client side of the house, and also basically anything that involves a relationship from a banking standpoint. So think about dealer retail services, think about mortgage, think about banking. So a lot of the knowledge that we have taken in the HR world, guess what? We're dealing with human beings that have very similar expectations, concerns, hopes, dreams that exist in the client base. So that's one of the shifts that we are going to be doing. But as of today, we're housed under human resources and reported through our chief teammate officer and head of diversity, Kim Moore-Wright. And I'm so sorry, the second part of the question, I didn't catch. So can you repeat the second part of the question?
Yes, how large is your D&I team, or the D&I team rather?
Yeah, so we have a total of 3 segment leaders. So it's myself and 2 others that support all 16 lines of business. So I have what is called corporate functions. So what that means is risk management, finance, HR, legal, audit, the Leadership Institute, and also our banking operations division. And then my other 2 partners cover the rest of the gamut, from retail banking, commercial banking, corporate investment group, wealth management, so on and so forth. And then when you add the business, the team that covers the business resource group, environment and worlds, then we go to a total of 10 individuals that work in this department together. So that's we are a lot larger now than we were when we were 2 separate heritage organizations, and of course that means that there are more expectations from a team of this size compared to what it was.
All right, let me just check, make sure no one has their hand raised. I have one more from the chat that I wanted to close us out with, and this will be for everyone to kind of chime in. So what would you say from your seat is your biggest accomplishment around DE&I, and what is your biggest area of opportunity? And Luana, let's start with you and then go to Oscar, and then Mr. Dozier, we will end with you.
I'm so glad you started with me. So, my story. 7 years ago, my husband, who was a hardworking, regular old man, fell, and he hurt his head on the driveway, and he got a traumatic brain injury from that. Our world was turned completely upside down. Disability entered our house without being asked, and quite rudely, actually. And that propelled me to bring that man back to life. I was determined that he was going to be the husband and son and father and all of the things that he had been for so long. He was going to come back. That was not a choice. At the time, I did not work at Truist. I worked at another institution, and I felt like, in a way, that was my Achilles heel, because now I felt like, as a teammate, I couldn't give the hours that the work needed, because I had to take care of all of these other things outside of work. Well, I come to Truist, BB&T, now Truist, and I start talking about it a little bit more. I'm in a space where I can talk about it a little bit, but it's still something that I'm very reserved about. I feel like it's a personal thing and not a work thing. But my husband was an insurance agent prior to his accident, and he just so happened to have a really good disability insurance policy on himself. And now I find myself at a financial services institution, and I feel the need, I feel this responsibility to share my story so that others can be financially prepared should something happen to them. And so I start talking about it. And next thing I know, I'm being asked to co-lead a brand new group called Capabilities Action Network Business Resource Group. And I cannot tell you what that has done for me personally and professionally. I have been able to create a space. I have been honored to be given a seat to give voice to those that don't get a seat at the table generally. Disability is one of the largest minority populations and probably one of the most ignored. And I get the opportunity to say really loud on a megaphone, you are not listening, you are not paying attention to this group. And they do hear me, and they hear me loud and clear. And they will ask me, little old me, for my opinion on things. And that has been so powerful and so purposeful that it has shifted my whole perspective on I'm a better human being because of it, period. That's at the end of the day, that's what it's come down to. So areas of opportunities, I want to be able to look around and for us to all own our disabilities. Hi, I'm Luana, and I have anxiety and depression. I can tell you that right now. I have disabilities. And I want everybody to feel comfortable around that space because it's nothing to hide. It's something that we should all bring that perspective forward. So that's my story.
Okay. Oscar, I'm not here going to follow that one, but.
Yeah, it's super hard. What an inspiration you've been for all of us, Luana. You've done such an amazing job in the role that you have. I do have to say that the biggest part of satisfaction and excitement and hope it's to see how much intention we have placed behind those individuals that have that power and influence that I mentioned before, and how much you see that. Everybody's in a different path of the journey, but they are on the path. And people like Luana are talking to these individuals that are incredibly influential in the organization, and they're listening. And that to me is the part that we were missing. That we had individuals in the organization that were kind of going to their corner and saying, kind of, this is my world and it's comfortable here. We're taking a lot of these leaders out of those corners and saying, let me hear you. Let me see the world through your eyes and understanding as much as possible. In our organization, we are doing a lot of that. And then shortly for areas of opportunity, we need more accountability from all levels of leadership. Yeah, we have the top of the house and a lot of senior and influential leaders, but we need more from all levels of leadership, because at the end of the day, who builds inclusion are the individuals that are setting up the environment. And therefore, to me, that's still a big area of opportunity.
Thank you. Brian, all you.
I think the biggest thing is really having, at Truist, I believe that you can do whatever you want to do. And you can dream as big as you want to dream, because I'm one of those people who started my career very small and worked on degrees, and people knew I was just networking and really trying. And when people see that you try at Truist, they really take you and challenge you to grow to the next level. So I think that's the best thing. Everyone wants to help. I've never been helped more than I've been helped by people who are involved with the DEI BRG efforts at Truist. And it's one of the best, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I wouldn't have my career today if it wasn't for the business resource groups. And the BOLD Business Resource Group specifically is what started it. And now I'm honored each and every day I sign on to lead the efforts of the BOLD group across the footprint and connect with and learn about what they're doing in Maryland and Texas and Miami and South Carolina, and just meeting all of the people running the BOLD efforts and really doing what I once did and discovering what talent they have and how they want their careers to grow, and really nurturing their growth so that they can network and grow the same that I have. And that's why, and the data, it will change over time because of the business resource groups, because that's happening all across the board. Some of it calls with CAN. I enjoy those calls so much. I learned so much from Luana. I would educate my mama like, hey, Mom, I learned this today. This is how you could take care of my uncle, who is 76 years old, and she's just taking care of him. But I was telling Luana we had a lot to take care of. We're really transparent at Truist. My mom passed away this month, and now I've assumed her role in taking care of him. But because of those CAN calls, I'm prepared for it. And I'm discovering, oh, what is this? And you need help 24 hours a day? Like, and I need to make that happen. But with the flexibility of Truist and everything else, I'm still doing my job. We're currently in the middle of the United Way campaign, and we're raising money, and teammates are very supportive, and I haven't missed a beat. But with me being in a different location, I will say, meeting a branch manager on Monday and meeting the market leader today, who are both white males, we both discussed how they've been having DEI conversations with their teams and how it's changing their branch, their regions, and their cities. And so it's really happening at Truist. I'm discovering it in a new city where a mindset is really hard to change the mindset in some parts of South Carolina. but it's really happening for all of our teammates here at Truist.
All right.
And something that we can grow with is just, I don't know, just connecting. That's one thing that we're focused on, is bringing Truist together. And once we get everyone knowing what everyone part is and pouring back into the community, I think it's going to be really great.
Wow, y'all, thank you so much. I know the chat's been going bonkers here. Amazing culture, right? What a powerful portion to end on, right? Really, really, y'all are pitching Truist real well. While we are sorry we didn't get to do our reflection today, I do just want to wrap us up, first of all, by thanking our incredible guests. Y'all were candid. We appreciate you. So much amazing information and insight. And I know it's opened my eyes to Truist for sure. So thank you so much for joining us. And we would also like to invite anyone and everyone, our guests, our viewers, to join us for our final session in our Diversity Deep Dive series. The date is set for November 17th, 12 to 1 p.m. We will be hearing from Dr. Trayron Moore of Warner Media, and really just getting a behind the scenes look at that business. So thanks again for joining us. We apologize for those technical difficulties, and we appreciate your patience, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.